I was thinking again and working through the Bible, and we are reading a parenting book by Paul David Tripp. It's a beautiful book. The book is Parenting, so it's not a difficult title, self-explanatory. And he's speaking about a lot of stuff, and while Corneille is reading it to me and I'm just sleeping there, something just clicked in my head. He said something, it was like a sentence, like not even a paragraph, but it's this thing. And this thing just stuck with me, and the Holy Spirit started to tease it out. You know how you get a knot out of a rope? You tease it out. You give it a little slack, then you try to find something again, then you give it a little slack, then you try to find it again. And I've been teasing this for a long time now, 2 weeks. You must have heard the verse that says, it's in the middle, if you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the fruit of the land. And normally it's like a prosperity verse. It will be financially better for you. We like to connect fruit of the land with just something. And I was reading through it, and once again, as you know me, what's the most important book in the Bible? The first 5 books, you're correct. So the first 5 books, I don't split from each other. They're just one mega book. It's like a best of Moses. And once again, I'm just drawn to this Genesis 1 picture. God says this thing, it's Him speaking. He says, let us come together and let us reason. Let's talk it out. Let's go into a direction. And it says, though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall become like wool. Okay, so do you see this picture? Though something's bad, I'll make it good. Then he repeats himself. Though something's bad, I'll make it good. Okay. It's like, I was trying to think of like a modern equivalent of this. It's like when you need to go to the bank and see the bank manager. And the bank manager is, let's talk about this. Let's discuss this financial problem you're in. Because you have debt. That's exactly the same. There is debt, but it's sin debt. So you have debt, and the manager is like, it's okay, you have debt, let's clean it up. And then he repeats it. I've looked through the books, it doesn't look good, but it's okay, we're wiping it away. And that's what God's saying there. It's like there's a problem. But then he goes, if you are willing and obedient, and if a bank manager starts to quote the following, if you are willing and obedient, we call that a contract. If you are willing to abide by the following rules, we can clear this away, we can give you another loan, and you will eat the good of the land. Yeah, everything will be better. Can you hear that picture I'm drawing in your head? But if you refuse and rebel, if you don't sign the contract, woe is you, such will be on you. No, it says you shall be eaten by the sword. Oh, it's exactly the same. So we get this moment where God says, okay, so you're in the wrong, but I'll handle this. I'll clear it up. And then he repeats himself, you're in the wrong, but I'll handle this. And it's such an interesting view of God, because it's a really early view. So what did we have with Adam and Eve in the garden? We have this exact thing. What do we have the Israelites? This exact thing. They do something wrong, he steps in and handles it. They do something wrong, he steps in and handles it. It's this constant repeat. So it was an interesting thought, and I was mulling over the willing and obedient thing in my head. If you are willing and able, you will eat the good of the land. Can you read that part? Even if I zoom it, I won't be able to see able because there's no such concept in the Bible if you're able. If you're willing and obedient, not if you're willing and able. If you're able and obedient, not the only able we get had bad luck with his brother, and he wasn't able to last long. So able is quickly handled in the Bible. All ability is killed. Okay. So it's not a good thing to be able. It's a good thing to be willing and obedient. Okay. And if you think about it, I'm just thinking about it. Because Abel was able, Cain killed him. So being able isn't good for your health. Okay. Often we carry a particular problem, and that's now that Paul trip thingy. We carry this particular problem in Christianity, in parenting, in being a person that breathes. We carry this thing, and this thing affects the way we think. So your thought patterns are affected by it. It affects the way you view life. It shapes our responses. Something happens, your response is shaped by this thing. We'll come to what this thing is, but this thing shall be mounting. It determines what we say to ourselves at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Who's had like a difficult day and you have to like psych yourself up? Or an end of a day and you have to like wind yourself down and say, not another one of those, please, and thank you. It leaves you feeling unprepared, unable, and discouraged. Who's ever felt that unprepared, unable, discouraged? So it's normal feelings. It tempts us to look over the fence. Why is the neighbor's grass greener? Why is things going well there and not here? What's wrong with me? Here I am, Lord. See me. And then I wrote, too many Christians have a big trouble causing gap in their understanding. And that understanding, this problem I'm highlighting, is their lack of the understanding of God's grace. Like Paul writes a lot of stuff about grace. You know, his nickname was the Apostle of Grace. And he starts like every book, I Paul, a servant, or I Paul, an apostle, or I Paul, this guy that sells mega memory courses. Whatever he started a letter with, he goes over and he says, I greet you in the wonderful name of Christ Jesus. And then he gives this little benediction and Christology. And then he comes to the next part before he goes over to wham, this is what I'm writing you. He goes over to the most beautiful sentence, grace and peace be to you. And I said to Cornay, you know, they always ask you if you can get one famous person to have lunch with, living or dead, who would it be and what would you ask them? And I said, my famous unliving person would be Paul. And I'd ask him, what does grace and peace mean? Because it surely meant a lot to him. It was the foundation of why he did what he did. And he did a lot. And sometimes when I'm plowing through things and doing things and I feel discouraged, unable, or what was the other one, unprepared, I try to think, what would Paul do? Because he said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. So what would Paul do, bracelet? And I've been mulling it over and thinking and chewing on it, and I'm starting to understand the understood grace. Because without grace, you'll receive no peace. Peace comes because of grace, because grace gives you and peace follows. It's not just like you're having this difficult situation, but I'm feeling peace. No, you're having this difficult situation, you're experiencing grace, and that causes you to feel peace. So, what's our problem? We struggle to understand what or who grace is. We struggle to celebrate grace. in two ways. Why me and why it? Why grace and why is it given to me? And then we struggle with our reliance upon grace. So, do you see the able thing? How able and grace just counters each other. Because you can be very able, but why do you need grace then? If we were able, why did we need Jesus? Because God made it easy. He gave us a sacrifice system. And if we were perfect, we would be fine. So He gave us a law and said, if you follow the law to the letter, you'll be fine. And what did the law show us? We can't do it, we're not able, and we need grace. And that was the main reason for the law, to show us that we need the person grace. And able, the nice English word is inability. Inability is a beautiful thing in the Bible. We see it a lot. Like everything else, God calls people to. God doesn't call Christians to because they are able. So He didn't save you because you're able. There's no work you can do. You can fast until you look like, I don't know what, a menorah. You can pray until your knees look like the knees of James in the Bible, these camel knees. You can do all the work stuff, but it will not qualify you to be able. What will it do? It will puff you up. Because without grace, works only puff you up. They make you think, oh, okay, I'm able to do this. I'm getting this right. This is within my wheelhouse. Look at how good a Christian I am. I read Bible 5 hours a day. I eat once a week. I pray the rest of the time. And more than any of you, I pray in the Spirit. Able just removes you from what you really need. If you read the Bible carefully, you'll understand that God doesn't call people to be, doesn't call able people to do important things. And now I thought about it, Abraham. Like Abraham is like on this wiplank, this teeter-totter, and he's standing in faith and he looks superior, and then all of a sudden, no, this isn't my wife, this is my sister, and he lies through his teeth. And then he's like, God's going to give me a child. Okay, let's just grab this woman and procreate in our own ability, in our natural way of doing it by ourselves. Get Moses. Moses wants to handle something, then his handle is too hard and he handles the guy to death. And that's how he is. And he gets irritated with the people and he handles the thing and he hits the rock. And he wasn't able. Do you know what the Bible says about him? He wasn't the most able person ever. He was the most humble person ever. What do humble people know? They're not able. Gideon, was he ever qualified to do what he did? Now God had to tell him, Gideon, I'll give you a few chances for you to prove that I'm God because I know I'm God. And he gives him a lot of chances. And then he's like, God says to him, all those people who lap the water up like dogs, let them go. And it's like 300 people. And how strange is that? Do you think an able warrior will be on 4 paws, hands and feet on the ground, drinking water like a dog? Nom, nom, nom. That doesn't sound very able to me. That sounds a bit short-strawed. They're driving the short bus to school. It's not the most intelligent people. And God chooses them. Because able people would not be able to walk in the victory He has already provided. They'll try to be the victory. He doesn't need a hero to die on the field. He needs a hero to fall in love with him. You have David. David's a very good guy, but he goes up and down like this, up and down, and close to his deathbed, while laying on the bed, He thinks to himself, I should count how many people I have in the army. And if you can remember, God said to him, never count how many people you have in the army. And he counts how many people he has in the army, and what happens? Bad. A lot of people die. Why? Because he was trying to see how able he is. Inability doesn't mean that God has made a massive mistake. Rather that your inability being in the way of God's plan is part of the plan. Now, you shouldn't think I'm unable, so because I'm unable, I'm in God's way. He chooses unable, people with an inability to be the way, to be the plan. He knows people who admit that they are inadequate, run to God and make the best role models. Now, I wrote this thing and I stole some of it from the book because it was really good. The sense of ability has a danger. So, have you ever met able people? We have met them. They're dangerous sometimes. Sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's a boss, sometimes it's a husband or a wife, or it's just people who make other people feel inadequate because they're so able. They tick all the boxes. And one of the bottom ones is able people get upset when other people fail over and over again. Able people ask questions, why are you still struggling with this? Aren't you supposed to be over this a long time ago? Able people tend to assume that people should be able too. Able people tend to be proud and self-assured because they're proud of their ability. They act quickly and with too much self-confidence. And because they do that, they lack the patience and understanding. Have you ever met able people that made you feel inadequate? You can't match their level. How does that make you feel? Do you know rats are really intelligent? Like really intelligent. They had a study and they put adult rats with younger rats. And rats like to play like dogs. They tussle and they gnaw on each other and they're all doggy, but they're ratty. And in the study, they saw that when the older rats play with the younger rats, they mostly win. 8 out of 10 times they win, but 2 out of 10 times they let the smaller rat win. Why? So the smaller rat doesn't become discouraged. Even rats understand how that works. They let them win so they don't become discouraged. If the rat was thinking he's able, he's exactly right because he's stronger physically, has more life experience, he will win every time. But if you want to re-engage the younger rat, let me lose on purpose. Let him feel he's accomplishing something. And that was an interesting thing. Rats do it. Even educated fleas do it. Those who know the song. Willing and obedient, not able, because if you are able, you would be self-sufficient. And we quickly spoke about the self-sufficiency, and our self-sufficiency means we don't need God. Now, I'm not going to read both of those verses, everything, just highlighting. You all know this, I can do all things through Christ who gives me the power, who makes it possible, who gives me the strength. The other Philippians one of my favorites is Philippians 3 verse 12. Paul just gave his CV about how impressive he is. He's a Benjamite, he's a Pharisee of Pharisees, he's done everything like this. And he says, I counted all a loss, but to know him. But to know him. And he says, and through knowing him, I found my righteousness. That's the paragraph just in front of this one. And then he goes on to this one and he says, not that I have already obtained this perfect ableness. Not that I'm the bee's knees. Not that I have already obtained it, or that I am already perfect, but I press on to make it my own, because Christ has made me his own. That's like a beautiful verse, because it's so heavy laden with grace. Grace gives me the power to strive to get it correctly, to do it right, to tick the boxes. And why do I strive to do it? Because he has made me his own. Now, you should remember that Paul was a Jew, and in this Jewish thinking, he had depth. He was saturated in certain thinking. And one of those things he knew was who God is. Do you know who God is? That's a good question. Huh? Who is God? That's a really good question. Now, let's see where I'm going there. Okay, so that's too far. I'm not going to lead you there yet. In Exodus, Moses goes up to the mountain. He gets the 10 Commandments. He comes down the mountain and he sees the Israelites doing what? Sacrificing to the blue bulls. The golden bulls. Okay, sacrificing to the golden bull. And Moses gets another moment of inability where he can't be like the nicer person. He throws down the tablets. They were Samsung, that's why they broke. And now this is the second time where he needs to go up the mountain and get the law again. And he fetches the law and he comes down with the law. And this time no one's sacrificing to any other god. They're all in a row. And God comes down in a cloud from the mountain with him. So this is now God going to show him to the people. How did he show himself before that? He didn't. Moses was the intermediary. Moses had to say, I am. Moses had to go up the mountain and go speak to God and get the rules, the T's and C's, the terms and conditions. And Moses came down, and instead of Moses saying, okay, here's the 10 Commandments, let's read this, memorize it, tomorrow you'll have a quiz on it. Instead of that, God comes down and he says this wonderful thing. He says, I'm the Lord, meaning I'm the one in control. And he repeats that just so if I stuttered, I'm the one in control. And then he says, he is slow to anger and rich and abounding in love. He chooses to represent himself the first time to people who just failed. He says, don't worry about it, I'm okay with that. Your inability is extremely fine with me. I'm gracious, I'm faithful, I'm slow to anger. That's me. That's nice, huh? Have you ever thought about it? So they just did this horrible wrong of going back to their previous gods. And he's like, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. You'll always be you, and you'll always need me. I think that's very special. And when you start to chew on the words, the things he's explaining about himself. Let me quickly run to that verse. It's in Exodus 34, verse 5 and 6. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with him and proclaimed his name, the Lord. This is impressive, huh? So the Lord came down and stood with Moses, and he proclaimed his name is the Lord. And he passed in front of Moses proclaiming. So not Moses going, hear ye. It's like God doing the talking. That would have been terrifying. That would have been terrifying. The Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. I think that's brilliant. So now you have to start to think for yourself. You're now a Christian, okay? Imagine you're a Christian. Who's this God you are serving? Have you ever thought about it? We have like these things other people say about him. But have you started to delve in these, what are they? 5 things. compassion, grace, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. There's 4 things. Have you ever started to unpack them? Or have you just assumed what other people say about God? So it's a slight correction, but it's a good correction. So I'm chewing on grace, and grace is I wrote down the brilliant Hebrew words for you, for all those Hebrew scholars. So we Afrikaans people can do the guttural, the English people can't do. Okay, so you are probably better Hebrew speaking people than English people. So the first one there is that grace is chanun, and I put in a G especially for all of you, but the KH would be chanun. And so the first one there is chanun, and that's the gracious. That's the word he uses to give that explains himself. And you know, the basis word of chanun is chen. And that word pops up through the Bible a lot of places. And often it's translated as delight. Often it's translated as favor. Often it's translated as grace. So you have this different thing. So now I'm helping you, and we're doing like a think pot. We are going to expound the word grace, but we're not going to use a dictionary. We're only going to use the Bible, and we're only going to use verses. And we now have to enlarge our capacity about what grace is. So if you have like a Bible search thingy, you can put in chen, K-H-E-N, or you can put in grace or favor or delight. Then you can search through all the words in the Old Testament, and you can see, okay, it talks about delight here. It talks about favor here. What does it say? What's the sentence before it? What's this sentence? What's the meaning of the paragraph? I want you to chew, and I want to help you to start thinking, how about being more Jewish without doing Hebrew? Okay. So in Psalm 45, you get this verse that says, my heart overflows with a pleasing theme. I address my verses to the king. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like a pen of a ready scribe. You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace is poured out upon your lips. Okay, so now we have this word chen, this grace, and grace is poured out on his lips because he is an eloquent speaker. So that's basically what he's saying. It's because he has the ability to say all these flowery words in brilliant poems, it's grace. Okay, so the Bible likes to teach us grace looks like something. Now, how well do you know the English language? Now, we have a lot of words for grace. Someone is gracious. What would you say if someone is gracious? They are giving, they are kind, they're respectful, they carry themselves in a certain way, they're gracious. Okay? If you have like a ballet dancer and she's standing up on her toes to reach the top shelf, you know, that's the pose. reaching the pop. Okay. So that's a ballet pose. What do we call that ballet dancer? Graceful. She's full of grace. Why is she full of grace? Because she has ugly feet. The ability to stand on her tiptoes. Why is she graceful? Why are we connecting a word to something we are seeing? Because the movements are elegant. The movements look easy. Have you seen like a sports guy? And he just moves and he does something impossible. You can't even think that while you're running with an Easter egg, you can think that fast. And this rugby guy is just looking there, and the ball is going there, and it looks effortless. And the guy behind him catches the ball, and he does like, you know, this one long step, and then he goes that way. You can see that. I'm not a rugby guy, but I've seen that before. You go like that, and then you go this way. They're gracious. It's a graceful movement. It's this powerful person doing something that is inspiring. And the men go like, oh! We don't do that at ballet, men, okay? If the guy picks up the girl, don't go, oh! Just keep quiet. So that's a bit of etiquette for you. But we feel something when we see something, and we respond towards it. Okay, so we're building on the word grace. You read a nice poem. It stirs something. You hear a song. Someone sings like an angel. You get goosebumps. What happens? You feel something. It stirs an emotion, and you feel a tender feeling towards that person, like, wow, that's amazing. They're so gifted. That's cool. Now, okay, so when they translate grace in the Bible, that's what it goes as well. So musicians played gracefully, like David, skillfully and gracefully. And you have all these explanations. In Proverbs 1 verse 9 it says, "Hear my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching." That's important. That's a well-trained husband. Listen to your father, but more to your mother. For they are graceful. For they are a graceful garland for your head and a pendant for your neck. So this instruction is something graceful. It's something helpful. It will lead you on a path everlasting. It will help you to be better. If you think, I put this down, Esther and the king. Now, she's Miss Universe. You know how Esther won the king's hand? She titivated for like months on end. She went on the special diet. She put on the sash, and she was like Miss Jew. And the king saw her, and he said, "I like that one. Number 5, please." And she became like the queen of that whole important era. Because now she's Miss Universe. And you have this one part where Mordechai comes to her, and he's like, Mordechai, you got it all G. Mordechai comes to her, and he says, Esther, we have a problem. Haman is trying to kill all the Jews. And Esther is like, whoa. And they go into like this whole fasting thing. And it looks like fasting is nice, but fasting wasn't the thing that turned it. There was something else. Fasting's part of it. Remember, fasting's part of it. But there's something that turns it. What turned it? She put on her mois, her Miss World gown. She went to the court of the king, and she was standing there waving to everyone. And she's standing in the court, and the king sees her. And what does the Bible say in Esther 5? And he saw her, and he saw her with favor. So she did nothing. She just stood there. And he gave her favor. And what did he do? He handed his scepter to her, and he said, "Ask of me anything." Anything. Because that's what grace is. When it is given, it gives everything. And he says, "Ask of me anything, and even half the kingdom, and I will give it to you." Did she deserve it? He gave it. So, grace, was given not because it was deserved. Now we're starting to go into Pauline language. Grace, unmerited favor. Okay, so you now see the Pauline language just expounding. Now, in a short while, you'll start to hear all the Bible verses in your head about grace. But now you'll have a good background for it. Jacob and Esau. Did you read that whole Jacob and Esau thing? So Jacob gave his brother a green bean salad or something, and he sold his birthright. And because of this vegan food, he no longer was the main makopa that would inherit. See, vegan food's bad for you, meat. And he no longer was able to inherit, and they had this row, and Jacob ran away to Laban. And he spent a lot of time there, and he got a lot of donkeys and cows and sheep and horses and camels and everything, and wives and children, because he had a lot of those. And at one time he was coming back. He was coming back to his people. And while coming back, he's like, let's split these in 2 groups. So if Esau attacks us, he won't kill everyone. Some might get away. And he's like, let me pay a bribe. Sweeten the deal. And he puts like this beautiful gift of horses and slaves and cows and sheep and camels and everything together. And he sends it out with an emissary to go butter up his brother and say to his brother, hey dude, don't be so mad. And he goes, and Esau is like, why all the gifts? I don't need anything. And when they eventually meet, he's like, Jacob is, here I am, your servant. And Esau is like, I'm not interested in a servant, I'm interested in a brother. But here's all these sheep and cows and lovely things. I'm not interested in the sheep and the cows. I forgive you. I'm restoring you back again in my sight. What do you call that? He looked with favor upon his brother, says the Bible. Now, is that deserved? He didn't even take his bribe. And that's how we should start to think about grace. Moses and the Israelites, that's that one I told you about, the Exodus and the Ten Commandments he broke down. And now I wrote this one to expound it a bit more. We were, Corné and I, when we were in our 20s, but 15 plus years ago, 10, 15 years ago, less for her because she's still very young. So long ago in our 20s, we traveled a lot and we saw the world and we saw things. And when you go to different countries, you get to go to different museums. Who's ever been to a museum? They have like pictures of ugly things, right? Pictures of beautiful things with value, and some pictures have value more than the debt of some African countries. Like, it's expensive stuff. People add value to that for no apparent reason except that it's nice to look at. Think about the Mona Lisa. Have you seen the Mona Lisa? She's like, and no eyebrows. And she's like this big. And people are like standing in queues to see the Mona Lisa. You have to like put on your glasses because it's so small. You have to like stand in front. And she's not really pretty. That's not my type of girl. She's just, where's the whimpers and but we added value to her. She has like security and queues and all these James Bond equipment around it so no one steals her. And we went to the Rijksmuseum and we saw some of the most beautiful paintings. And we went to that, what's that museum in Paris? The Museum of Orange? The Orange Museum. It's Monet. And we saw this beautiful painting of Monet of the lilies. And it's massive, Corné. It's like 3 meters more. It's like, it's massive. And you see this thing, and it's nice to look at. It's like, you can see the brush strokes, you can understand it took years. You can see the mind of an artist being able to start painting here on a blank canvas and thinking this whole thing up meters away from him. It's like 1.2 meters by something meters wide. It's brilliant. And if you look at, one of my favorite painting is the Lady with the Pearl Earring by Vermeer. It's a beautiful piece. It looks like a photo. It's really well done. You look at the Avondmaal, Da Vinci, with this beautiful painting of the Last Supper. It's inspiring. It's beautiful. One of my favorites is Rembrandt and the Night Watch. It's a deep, dark picture, and you see like people and you start to wonder, who were they? Because they were people. And you have another one of Rembrandt where they're like cutting a person open to relieve the spirits. So, because it's old-timey stuff. And it's interesting. It's just, and it's like millions. It's more than the net worth of most people is this painting. Why? Have you ever seen a Picasso? It looks like someone's been in a car crash and rearranged differently. But we amount a lot of value to it. It is valuable. We look with favor upon it. Who, even though you don't like Picasso, would like to own a Picasso? Yeah, you own it to sell it. Why? Why does it have value? Is the age-old question. Because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Because we view it and like it, we value it. We call that grace. Because God saw us and He liked us, He values us. Now, they're all very impressive. Let me see if I can send this one picture. I want to brag with Ben. So those are like the most impressive paintings you'll ever see in your life. And it says there, it says open. And this is the most valuable picture I have. I have no Mona Lisa on my phone. I have no Vermeer or any other painting ever. This is the most valuable picture I own. Do you think it's because he's a brilliant artist? He's mastered the techniques of the chalk on the driveway. That's a technique. Chalk on driveway by Ben. Do you think he'll probably become a painter? A house painter, but not a Rembrandt. Still, this is the most valuable thing I own. Why? Because he has the ability to paint something that is awe-inspiring and will move me. You'll see on the one hand it has 5 fingers because you should have 5 fingers. On the other hand it has 8 fingers because he wanted to add extra fingers for in case he had to grab on something bigger. So it's very logically thought out. It's not just extra fingers. It was, let's put 3 more fingers there for bigger grip. And we often put the weight upon ourselves that we need to be Vermeer or Rembrandt. You need to be Da Vinci. You need to be Van Gogh. Why? You said this is the standard you should reach. There's only but one standard you should reach. You should be willing and obedient, not able. Because grace is something you give because you love, not something you give because they've earned it. And that's something I feel in Christianity we put a high amount of pressure upon ourselves. We think if I fast 5 times a week and I eat only once, if I fast 5 days a week, if I pray this much, if I read this much Bible, then I can hit the bar. What bar is my first question? What standard is my first question? Because there's no standard. The only standard you should know is God resists the proud but draws near to the humble. It's in James 4-ish. He resists the proud, but he draws near to the humble. I wrote myself a few verses while we were praying, and I was thinking about this topic. That was James 4 verse 6. Matthew 11 verse 28. Come to me all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Okay, so not all who are able. And I was with you in weakness. That's 2 Corinthians 2 verse 3. Paul was talking about Paul, and I was thinking about Paul while Paul was talking about Paul. And that verse came up to me, and Paul was like constantly just saying, and I was with you in weakness. I didn't model to you someone who is able. I modeled to you someone who is unable, but still willing, but still obedient. And that's the story of Paul. He's not showing himself up and saying, I'm this good and I'm this good. I know a man. And he's not like hyping himself up. He's like, when I was with you, I wasn't trying to be more than I am. I was truthful. There was difficult times and you saw it in my face. There was hard times and I spoke to you about it. And why? Because Paul was modeling what? He said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. What do you see when you see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? An honest person saying, this isn't what I want, but I'm willing and obedient. And because he was willing and obedient, he was able to be the greatest gift we ever needed. He was grace for us. And though we have to think about doing the right thing, like Paul said, I strive toward this. Though I have not obtained it already, I strive towards this. I'm trying to do this. Though that is the goal, do you know what is the number one thing that will hinder you from reaching the goal? Whatever your goal is, may it be longer prayer times, more consistent prayer times, reading the Bible, doing whatever your goal is, growing in love and in character. Because sometimes we misjudge things. We use attainable things, like I can read for 5 hours, and we make that tick in the box. Do you know what a tick in the box is? Love, patience, kindness, meekness, long-suffering. If you give like that as your CV, I'll say, okay, I see you've been spending time with God. And it's not a quick thing, because those things don't come easy. You can get a new Christian, we can start in today, you'll fast once a week, you'll read Bible for an hour, you'll pray for an hour, and we can really drill him and we can follow him up and say, come on, did you read Bible today? And we can do all that. But will he grow in patience and in kindness? The deep, difficult stuff, the under the ground stuff we call character, is grown when we know I'm not able to do this. You have all these beautiful old songs. I need thee, oh I need thee, every hour I need thee. Oh bless me, Lord my Savior, I need thee. There's an understanding where being normal and unable to do things is a really good place. God doesn't share his glory with anyone. Have you ever read that? Sometimes being able is glory as well, because I did it my way. He likes broken vessels. He likes them because he makes them whole again. He fixes them up. And it's something we should think about. Where should I be applying more grace? Because grace isn't something that someone earns. Grace is something I give because I see value in them. Why do I see value in them? Easy. The more time you spend with God, the more value you'll add to other people. Okay. Value isn't just added to other people because one day you can be fine, the next day you won't be fine. Okay. So that's something you grow in. Grace isn't something that's earned, it's something you give. And grace isn't something I earn, it's something I receive. Do you receive grace because you've ticked all the boxes, or do you receive grace because he wanted to give you grace? So the questions we should ask ourselves in this week: where am I not applying grace to myself? Where am I putting certain targets? And you know, as soon as you don't apply grace to yourself, what happens? Guilt, shame, condemnation. You know that loop circle? You feel guilty because I didn't hit the target I wanted to hit. Now I'm condemning myself. And now that I'm condemned, I'm living in shame. And you know, shameful people like to be at the feet of Jesus? No. They don't. They like to keep away, because why would I go to him? You see that whole circle we get in. So where am I not applying grace to myself is the first question. The second question is, where am I not applying grace to those around me? Where am I portraying myself as able when I'm not supposed to be portraying myself as able, but as one that knows he needs God. And that's a difficult one because we live in a society and in a time where being able is important. And that's from the beginning of time. The guy with the biggest stick that's able to defend himself was the leader, the clan chief. Nothing is new. The person who added the most value to the tribe was valued. So it's always been a thing where we like to measure things. Yeah, if God started to measure things, we would be in big trouble. We would be in real big trouble. It would be like, you've been weighed, you've been found too light. So thank God he doesn't measure things, he just pours them out. He pours grace out on us. And that's something we should pour out on others as well. I'm not saying we let things slide, because remember, he's still a righteous and just God. So we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. But we should apply grace to ourselves. For what reason? And Paul gives us that reason. So that we may attain the righteousness that God gives us. And why? Because Jesus gave it to us. He thinks I'm worth it. So we're not trying to be better so we can get a better seat in heaven. Okay? There's no better seats or worse seats. We're not trying for any of that. We're trying because he thinks we're able. Then we're saying, okay, if he's betting on this horse is going to run. This horse is going to run because he's putting his money on this horse.